if you are comfortable doing so. Okay? No? Okay. And if you are here in person, you're welcome to visit the welcome table right outside the sanctuary and stay for conversation after the service during our social hour in the social hall down the hallway. And if you're at home and viewing us online, hello. And we would be happy for you to receive our newsletter so that you can learn more about us. You can also find out more at uufc.org. We have a few announcements. Today is a multi-generational service and our special Halloween service. There will be a little bit more interaction and music during the service, as well as a costume parade for all the little children that I see dressed up here today.
All ages.
In the front row. I didn't have the guts to get dressed up today. Anyways, so children and youth are invited to stay and participate in the service. However, the nursery will be open for any little ones that might utilize it. Please consider making a financial pledge to UUFC so that we can continue to provide service, music, and programming to our community. We cannot do that without your generosity. As of Wednesday, 23 pledges have been returned. We are on our way to reaching our goal with $76,888 committed thus far, but that means we still have $115,712 to go to achieve the goal of $192,600. There's also a Thanksgiving Day dinner being organized. Please let Barbara Stroop know if you can help plan this. She is sitting right here in the front row. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you, Modi. Well, in case you're not aware with what I'm wearing today, I am the Reverend Holly Brown. I am the minister here at the UU Fellowship of Clemson. And I will tell you that my costume is based on the 1990s version of the Addams Family movie of Pugsley Addams and This Is Thing. And I have a playful call to worship and welcome words for you this morning from Christian Schmidt. No matter who or what you are welcome here. Now let's be clear. Here we welcome goblins and ghouls, saints and sinners, angels and devils, zombies and werewolves, vampires and witches. We welcome princesses and princes, paupers and farmhands, aliens and astronauts, robots and cyborgs, firefighters and police officers, nurses and doctors, cowboys, cowgirls, cowfolk of all varieties. We welcome Superman, Wonder Woman, Black Panther, Batman, Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Thor. Indeed, we welcome both superheroes and superstars. In short, we welcome people, monsters, and all other manner of creatures. Here, we welcome you, and all who and what you are. Welcome. Let us enter our time of worship together this morning. You are invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit, wherever you are, to join in singing our opening hymn, number 361, in the gray hymnal or on the screens. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Open your ears to the song.
I would like to invite Talia Wetzler to come up and help us light the chalice. Now let us share in the reading of this fellowship's affirmation that is shared in the order of service. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another. And now it's a time for all ages with Karen Hebel.
And Talia is going to help me out. And this is going to be an interactive one, so I'm going to need everybody's help. But first I'm going to put down these dangerous props of mine. So today's story is going to require a little bit of audience participation. We're going to have some sound effects, and Talia is going to help us out with. First, we're going to need a clomp, clomp sound. What in that basket do you think might make a clomp, clomp sound? Try it with, yeah, those. So can everybody do clomp, clomp? Go ahead. Clomp, clomp. Okay. And then we're going to need, and this isn't a sound effect, but we're going to need a wiggle, wiggle. Can everybody do a wiggle, wiggle? Wiggle, wiggle. No. And then we're going to need a shake, shake. Shake, shake. Okay. And we're going to need a clap, clap. You can use whatever you want for that part. And a nod, nod. And we're also going to need a boo. Okay. So we're going to give this a go. So today's story is The Little Old Lady Who Was Not Afraid of Anything.
Oh, I like this.
It's a good one. By Linda Williams and illustrated by Megan Lloyd. Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who was not afraid of anything. One windy afternoon, the little old lady left her cottage and went for a walk in the forest to collect herbs and spices, nuts and seeds. She walked so long and so far that it started to get dark. There was only a sliver of moon shining through the night. The little old lady started to walk home. Suddenly, she stopped. Right in the middle of the path were two big shoes, and the shoes went clomp, clomp. "Get out of my way, you two big shoes. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady. On she walked down the path, but behind her she could hear the two shoes go clomp, clomp. A little further on, the little old lady stumbled onto a pair of pants, and the pants went wiggle, wiggle. "Get out of my way, you pair of pants. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and she walked on. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp, and one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. Further still, the little old lady bumped into a shirt, and the shirt went shake, shake. "Get out of my way, you silly shirt. I'm not afraid of you," said the little old lady, and she walked on, a little bit faster. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, and one shirt go shake, shake. A little ways on, the little old lady came upon two white gloves and a tall black hat. And the gloves went clap, clap, and the hat went nod, nod. "Get out of my way, you two white gloves and you tall black hat. I'm not afraid of you," she said, and on she walked, just a little bit faster. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp, one pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle, one shirt go shake, shake, two gloves go clap, clap, and one hat go nod, nod. By now, the little old lady was walking at quite a fast pace. She was very near her cottage when she was startled by a very huge, very orange, very scary pumpkin head. And the head went, boo, boo. This time, the little old lady did not stop to talk. She did not stop at all. She ran. But behind her, she could hear two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. And one shirt go shake, shake. Two gloves go clap, clap. One hat go nod, nod. And one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. The little old lady did not look back. She ran as fast as she could and didn't stop to catch her breath until she was safe inside her cottage with the door locked. She sat in her chair by the fire, and she rocked, and she rocked. It was so quiet in her cottage before the knock, knock. Knock, knock. On the door. Should she answer it? Well,
No.
she was not afraid of anything. So she went to the door and opened it. What do you think she saw?
The shoes, the pants, the shirt, the gloves, the hat, and the pumpkin.
Spoiler alert. Two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. One shirt go shake, shake. Two gloves go clap, clap. One hat go nod, nod. And one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. I'm not afraid of you, said the little old lady bravely. What do you want anyway? We've come to scare you. You can't scare me, said the little old lady. Then what's to become of us? The pumpkin head suddenly looked unhappy. I have an idea, said the little old lady. She whispered into the pumpkin's ear. The pumpkin head nodded and its face seemed to brighten. The little old lady said goodnight, closed the door, and whistled on her way to bed. The next morning she woke up early. She went to her window and looked out into her garden. And what do you think she saw? Two shoes go clomp, clomp. One pair of pants go wiggle, wiggle. One shirt go shake, shake. Two gloves go clap, clap. One hat go nod, nod. And one scary pumpkin head go boo, boo. And scare all the crows away. Thank you.
All right. This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the undesignated collection each week goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of October, we are partnering with Ripple of One. Each week, we also collect non-perishable food for the Clemson Community Cares Food Bank. You may also give by going to the UUFC website and using the donate button. There you will see options for paying your pledge and donating towards the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity.
Again, thank you for your generosity. During our stewardship and pledge drive this year, we're going to have a few minutes of testimonials during the service from a few members about why they give or what about UUFC is important to them. And so I invite Dave Sanders, disguised as Handsome Jack this morning, to come forward and share.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Handsome Jack. But this will be a lot easier for me to talk to you without my everyday mask and put on my Dave Sanders mask. This is our stewardship campaign, and I was asked to give a few words about why I give. And just to give you a little context and background, I previously served on the board for a 3-year term as president-elect, president, and then past president. And I currently serve as the chair of the Planned Giving Committee, which is part of our endowment management process. And I've been a member of this fellowship since 2018. I joined UU back in the mid-90s, though, in Ohio. New Madison, Ohio was my first introduction. Why am I telling you all this? Because I found home in UU. After being chased away from several fundamentalist churches trying to find a program for my children, UU accepted me and provided religious education for my children, or exploration for my children, and that stuck with me. So when we moved to the Clemson area, it was a natural fit for us to join UUFC. And in fact, I was on a business trip in Europe, and my wife texted me one day saying, I found the church that we're going to. So it wasn't even a question or an option or anything. So, but why do I give in the stewardship campaign? I give of my time. I have given of my time and continue to, but the time isn't, the gift of my time isn't the only thing that will sustain this fellowship. My financial resources help sustain the operation of this building, the payment for our staff and this, other services that we need to pay for to keep this operation going. And it wasn't until during my year as president, that happened to be January 2020 when I took over as president. You might remember what happened in March of 2020. We went through an extensive goal-setting session in January of 2020 to make sure we were all set. And then March happened, and we had to start over. Coming out of the pandemic, we realized that we had lost members, as all churches nationwide had done, not just in the UU tradition. But that also meant we lost pledges and we lost income to sustain our operations. So we were at a very critical pivot point, and we needed to do something. So we built this, started this rebuild campaign to help us rebuild finances, to help us sustain until we could regrow our membership to a point where it was self-sustaining. We're not quite at that point yet. We've been living off of those rebuild funds now for a few years, a couple of years now, and next year will be our 3rd year of using those rebuild funds. But those funds will run out pretty much by the end of next year. We might have a little bit left over for 2026. So it's critical that we build our self-sustaining pledges to offset what we were being subsidized by from our rebuild funds. And it didn't really hit home to me until we had when I was on the board, and we had a stewardship consultant come and talk to us about the importance of our stewardship program. And that's when I personally made a step change in my own pledge donation and have sustained that steady increase since then. My wife Karen and I deliberate every year around that and make a very intentional decision on what we give, considering our financial situation and everything. But I'm proud to say we've been able to increase every year, and this year will represent another increase in my pledge donation for UUFC. I encourage each of you to make your pledge, to turn in your pledge card, and to give till it feels good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Each week, we set aside a time during our service to share of our joys and concerns. This is a time of sacred sharing, reminding us of our connection to our community and to help us remember that we are not alone. So I've asked Modi now, in this moment, if he would come over on the side of the pulpit and place a stone into this bowl, this vessel, representing our shared community for each of the joys and concerns shared. I have a joy and gratitude from Alan Goldsmith. My sincerest thanks to all of the performers and audience members who, in ways large and small, obvious and non-obvious, contributed to the success of yesterday's talent show. It really does take a village, from its youth to its old, each giving with a generosity of spirit that lies at the heart of our UUFC community. Kudos, gratitude, and another well-deserved round of applause. Thank you. And I would extend that joy and gratitude in thanks to Alan Goldsmith, and Elaine Faithful for organizing, and I forgot last night to mention Modi as our MC for the event, so our gratitude to the three of them as well. Yes. And place a stone recognizing a joy from Paula Husenfeld to share that Reverend Christina Branham Martin has accepted a position as the settled minister at Emerson UU Congregation in Marietta, Georgia. And Reverend Christina was the interim minister here and is now the minister at Paula's sister's church. So that continued connection. And I have two concerns or sadnesses. One is from Kathy Crane, that the Robert Lund's group of South Carolina Sierra Club is declaring its sunset due to a lack of leadership. Now the Greenville-Spartanburg area will have no local Sierra Club presence. And a concern from Sarah McNeil to let folks know that Mary Alice Mayberry is in the hospital in Oconee and will come home soon to hospice. Yesterday, she was itching to go home as quickly as possible. And we add one final stone representing all of the joys and concerns that are held closer to our heart that are not spoken aloud this morning. I now invite you into a time of meditation. Maybe relaxing into your seat, placing your feet on the floor, softening your gaze or closing your eyes. To listen to these words, the quiet power within us. Let us join in a moment dedicated to the quiet power within us. It is within that we find that what we need to face the world. It is within that we find the love to embrace the world. It is within that we find our personal identity and know the world. Yet, within us is also a great void, We fill this void at times of great loneliness, frustration, and despair. Sorrow, hatred, and greed too are within us. Just as we need to be alone at times to put things right, so do we need to be with others to love and to be loved. This great social urge also is within us as powerfully as that separateness, that uniqueness that gives us identity. Let us look within ourselves with honesty and trust. We shall find there are a personal center important to who we are. We shall find there's something held in common with those about us, family, friends, neighbors, and in ever-widening circles until we find that which we have in common with all people, something irreducibly human, something completely natural. This is the center of all religion, all love, all concern for others, and it is the center of our personal growth. May these few moments be a personal time for you, a time for that person within you who feels at one with humanity, with nature, and with all the universe that was, is, and shall be. Amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Corey. So today I have a reading that's kind of like a second story and is going to be a little interactive, though not as interactive as the one that Karen shared earlier. So the story I have is about masks. And there's different kinds of masks, like Handsome Jack when he came up earlier. Or you might be familiar over the last several years of wearing masks, like this one during the pandemic. And so this story was originally written in 2021, so earlier on in the pandemic. And so it focused a little bit more on these kinds of masks, so I've adapted it a little bit for today. But we wear these masks still when we are worried about germs or are worried that if we might be getting sick, we don't want to share it with others around us. Masks like these kind of seemed new at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't they? A lot of us hadn't worn things like this initially, but we got used to that. Who here wore a fabric mask back at the beginning of the pandemic? Yeah. And then we had these and the KN95s. A variety of different colors and decorations evolved during that time. But just because these masks were new to us doesn't mean that all masks are new to us. So there might be masks of animal faces or our ancestors or cultural significance that we keep around. And of course, there's also the Halloween masks. You might wear something that looks like a dinosaur, or I think Alan last year had a giraffe hat on. If I remember correctly, yes. I've seen people dressed up in those great big inflatable dinosaurs sometimes. All different kinds of costumes. Some are a little more obvious, some need a name tag or an explanation of what they are. And I got to thinking about other things that this black and white striped shirt could represent. So if I put on a little mask like this, and if I had on a great big long red tie with hamburgers on it, would anybody recognize me as the Hamburglar? Yes. Yeah? So also, I didn't have any, but like the white face paint and the white gloves and being quiet, which wouldn't really serve well for me being up here speaking to you today as a mime. But do any of you have a favorite costume, maybe when you were younger or even still today, that you tend to gravitate towards because it's an easier costume? Anybody ever have that? Yes? Okay. Well, last year I wore this, and so I decided to switch it up this year. But for a lot of years of my life, I wore this hat, which my grandmother made as my Halloween witch's costume. And it was really simple, just threw on like a black dress or outfit of some kind and was transformed into a witch. Although, kind of identify as pagan or a witch all the time. So the hat was a little on the nose. But there are other types of Halloween costumes. Maybe you've dressed up as a superhero. Anybody ever dressed up as a superhero of any kind? Okay. I think at least one or two. Did you wear a mask? You know, Spider-Man does, but Superman doesn't. He just takes off his glasses. You have Batman who wears a mask, Mr. Incredible, Batwoman, Thunder, and Elastigirl. Lots of superheroes wear masks, but not all. And sometimes our masks represent villains. We might be dressed up as horror movie characters or like Maleficent from Disney or other kind of villain type characters. It allows us to do something, to pretend something different than what we do every day. Do you think you can become someone else when you put on a Halloween costume? Yeah? Okay. So I think that masks can kind of give us superpowers, including the power to be transformed. What do you think? Can masks give us some kind of power, even if it's just protecting others? So, with the service being focused on the different kinds of masks or costumes that we might wear, I invited folks to dress up if they were comfortable doing so and remembered to do so, because, that's always a thing. Or you see the email this morning and it says something about costumes and you go, oh no, I don't have a costume. Oh well. But the theme today is everyday costumes. So, if you're dressed up as yourself, that can count as a costume too. So over the next few minutes, Corey has agreed to play the Addams Family theme song for us, as anybody that is dressed up that would like to come up and kind of parade around in the space to show off your costumes. And if you know the Addams Family theme and know where the snaps go, you can do that too.
All right. I'd like to share with you a reading by Peter Friedrichs. To embark on the journey to discover this God-given self takes courage and commitment. It is a risky business. It requires us to shed the masks and the costumes that populate our closets, to strip down to our naked selves and to take a close look in the mirror. There, we are called to see ourselves, and perhaps more challenging yet, to claim ourselves, warts and all. Palmer puts it this way: I know myself to be a person of weakness and strength, liability and giftedness, darkness and light. I now know that to be whole means to reject none of it, but to embrace all of it. This might seem like terribly narcissistic navel-gazing, but it is imperative that we discover our true selves and claim our wholesomeness, our wholeness, in order to fulfill that other mandate we receive from Forest Church to do what we can. When we fail to discover our true selves, when we cling to the personae that are nothing more than the masks we wear or the fulfillment of the expectations of others, it is easy to simply remain victims of our own condition. We are disempowered puppets, actors playing out a script not of our own making. We blame God or our parents or our partners for all our circumstances. But when we do the hard work of discovering our true and authentic selves, of claiming our whole selves, we are called to live into those selves. Embracing one's wholeness, Parker Palmer writes, makes life more demanding, because once you do that, you must live your whole life. You must, in the words of Forest Church, be who you are. The good news is that it's never too late. It is never too late to start the journey of self-discovery, of shedding the skin that we've worn since our birth that was, like an ill-fitting suit, never quite right.
Thank you, Modi. I know that was kind of a big transition from something very lighthearted to something sounding a little bit more serious. But in thinking about our everyday costumes, I thought that this excerpt from this sermon by Friedrichs was really kind of powerful. And I want to acknowledge that it is part of somebody else's sermon as a reading, because that's important. I don't want to take credit for that in any way. That's why I had somebody else in a different voice to read it. And so you've heard stories about different aspects of Halloween over the years, I'm sure, that are quite varied. And you've heard some different tells during service today, both in thinking about the ways in which we might be scared or not, as the little old lady or the crows were during the time for all ages. But how about those things that she heard running after her, coming after her, and in a moment of kind of panic, she did run into her cabin. So she might have gotten over her fear, but she had that moment. And there are some studies that say that there are some benefits to being scared sometimes, especially if we do it in a controlled environment. Has anybody here ever gone to a haunted house? Yeah. Now, when you went in, you expected to maybe be scared. I always liked going in to see if they would make me scared, if they were good enough. But I also grew up watching scary movies and still enjoy certain movies, although I've realized that the more unrealistic the scary characters are, the more I enjoy them, suspending belief in what is part of the real world versus what is completely beyond the realm of what we understand as, when we look at vampires and zombies and other creatures. However, they do represent something of ourselves. And I didn't really incorporate it into this, but there is a book called The Dark and Stormy History of Unitarian Literature that has an excerpt about Mary Shelley and others that created these creatures and this kind of Gothic literature of the time. And there's something to be said about exploring the unknown, looking at different sciences and technologies. We had someone talk to us all about AI last night at our talent show, and man, there's some really interesting things that AI can come up with when you put the combination of factors in. But Kathy Crane shared an article with me that was the transcript of a podcast called Code Switch on NPR. And she lifts up how this fear in a controlled environment actually helps us to cope with all that is going on around us in the real world and offers us a measure of escapism. And in another article connected to this one, she mentions a study that happened during the pandemic that highlighted how people that tended to watch horror movies had a greater resilience in dealing with the pandemic, which I found kind of interesting. But it does kind of make some sense. If we're accustomed to being uncomfortable and a little frightened already as our baseline, maybe it feels less overwhelming when the unexpected happens. So if you haven't been in a haunted house, have you ever been into a store like Lowe's or Spirit Halloween, or maybe into somebody's yard that has one of those big things that jump out or scream or do something? I saw a video in the last couple of days of somebody standing on one and it not doing anything for a minute, and so she moves on it, and then it jumps up way into the sky above her, and I swear she did the same thing and fell right over. So even when we expect to be scared, sometimes we still find ourselves experiencing the unexpected. And now there's a certain amount of wearing our costumes, feeling like we get a chance to be someone else. But there's also our everyday costumes. Who we are is different depending on our circumstances. You might be someone's parent or child. You might be a teacher or a singer. They're all different backgrounds and things that we bring. When I worked in North Carolina State Historic Sites, I had my everyday kind of costume of wearing this polyester blue polo that said State Historic Sites on it. But then I got to dress up in some really interesting costumes representing the late 1700s and the mid 1800s, both men and women's. And something y'all might not know about me is I know how to shoot percussion muskets and cannons because I was trained on that while I was working in historic sites. But then there's other things that we wear every day. If you see somebody wearing scrubs, what do you think they do? Somewhere in the hospital or a doctor's office, whether they be a doctor or a nurse or a receptionist, you might see some colorful scrubs. I've seen hospitals where there's different scrubs that are different colors representing where in the hospital someone works. Or if they're at like a children's hospital or it's a holiday, they might have some fun, festive kinds of scrubs on that get to play a little bit differently and set them apart in some way. And then there's things that we don as a representation. Like for me today, it feels really weird to be up here ministering without a stole on. But I couldn't figure out how to make it work with the thing hand on my shoulder. So for me, this stole represents my ordination as a minister. It's a signifier that I went through the whole process of going to seminary and being ordained by this denomination. But some ministers wear a clerical collar, others wear long robes or albs in different styles, different religious traditions, and some don't wear a stole or a robe at all. They might just wear a suit. I've even seen somebody preach in t-shirt and jeans, especially in Florida. It's hot there. But these are types of costumes that we might wear every day, but we might not think about them as costumes because they do have an important meaning and significance to them. And so I also feel like it is absolutely important to lift up that our costumes might represent other professions or eras, like a different time period, maybe a 90s grunge rock and roller, or a flower power hippie, or a 1920s flapper. We might represent these different time periods or different professions, but there's an important difference between a profession and a culture, because it's important for us to not take on someone else's culture and to pretend to be someone else, like putting on a feathered headdress and ceremonial garb as a costume when that's someone's culture, someone's lived experience. That's not the kind of everyday costume that we want to put on or the type of costume that we want to don at Halloween. And so I don't want to end with this serious note, but I feel like it's really important to think about that, because there are all kinds of costumes, all kinds of things that we wear, and being mindful of how it impacts those around us. There's some things that people wear that spew hatred and harm. And we might see more of that heading into this election or after, sadly. But we can don our masks, our capes, our stoles, whatever it is that helps to give us superpowers. Superpowers that can help remind us that we can have fun, that we can play, and we can be serious when we need to be. And so I'd like to close by just saying that I hope that you will carry the spirit of playfulness that we had with our costume parade and other aspects of the service, and this coming week as we celebrate Halloween, and also the benefits of being a little bit scared and enjoying the spookiness of the season. And next week we'll talk more about Samhain, All Souls, All Saints, and Day of the Dead in our service on remembrance and legacy, to lift those up in a different way. But I hope that you will carry this spooky season with you and remind you of how we can be in our everyday costumes, no matter what time of year it is. That your own identities are revealing an aspect about yourself, being who you are, and representing you as you change throughout your life. May you find meaning in all aspects of your identity. May it be so. May we make it so. And blessed be. You are invited to rise in body, mind, or spirit to join in singing number 1024 when the Spirit says do. And we'll do sing and dance and laugh. So if during the dance and laugh especially you want to dance around or laugh out loud, you're welcome to. 4 verses.
Spirit
Did anybody else feel like when you laughed out loud that it was more like a caw from a crow? That's what I heard from myself. That was fun. I didn't do it because I didn't want to change the original lyrics, but I really wanted to do Spirit Says Boo. That might have been a fun addition, but I didn't want to change the original intent of the song. And so as we come to a close today, I'm so glad to have had you here in the spooky costumes and the fun and playfulness. May you carry that playfulness with you into our social time and Halloween festivities. Go in peace and return in love.